Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final session of day 4 of Local Gov Camp 2020. Always a pleasure and never a chore to introduce our next session facilitator. Some call him a legend, some call him a PR and comms behemoth. His wife calls him Dan because his name is Dan Slee, co-founder of Comms 2.0 and founder of Dan Slee, obviously, because he is Dan Slee. And I'm now going to hand over to Dan, who's going to facilitate a session on how to use the data to identify the best channels to communicate to your citizens within a pandemic. So over to you, Dan.
Okay.
Section.
Good stuff. Hello, everyone. I hope your day is going very well. I hope you have a cup of tea on the go. I hope you have soft cushions, all the rest of it. I'll do the screen sharing thing. Go through the slides, and also, if you have any questions, put them into comments. There should be plenty of time, like towards the end, just to ask comments and things, because I'm not going to bombard you with like loads and loads of stuff. So here we go. Share. Brilliant. Fantastic. Okay. Hopefully people can see that. I'm looking to Swain in particular. If you can see slides, Swain, he's nodding, which is really good. Right, okay. Session now, I'm going to look at how to create effective data-driven comms to communicate COVID-19, but also other stuff too, because I think there's a set of principles here that can apply to pretty much everything that you do. A bit of COVID because it's quite topical and important, but there's some other stuff here too. Quick introduction. Well, Nick's kind of introduced me. I used to work in local government. I worked in local government for 8 years and left to do advice and freelancing and consultancy full time. And this is what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years. I lose track what with everything. Right, okay. First, really basic principle is the chances of success with and without involvement of a comms team. And this set of numbers actually comes from an event myself and Nick did 6 years ago, where we did some work just to work out at what point is something successful when you involve people from communications. And we came out with a set of numbers because it's just useful just to illustrate whether or not it's worth actually talking to those people who can do stuff for you. So if it's in the early stages that the comms team get involved, potentially the success rate is 82%. After the scheme's been approved, 68%. Just before the launch, oh Dan, could you knock us out a press release? 40%. You've done the launch and no one's turned up. And now you need to bail yourself out of the hole because the chief executive's saying, well, what happened to that £1 million we've just spent that you've royally entertained yourself with, but nobody else has? 26%. If you do nothing at all, a 15% chance of success. I'm constantly struck by the fact that with change programs and other things, internally or externally, really well thought through ideas in the paper and in the room would just work amazingly, but no one gets to hear about them. All there is just a void of information. Yeah, we'll tell people in a minute, we just need to do this. People end up talking, what the heck's this? And projects just don't work because people don't understand them. People don't know how they're working, how they're going to operate, and all the rest of it. Which is a real shame. Just think about communications very early on. But also think about communications. Don't just think about, oh, I tell you what, it'd be really great to have drone footage. If only we had drone footage, all of this would just be so much better. The thing that's going to make this fly down is drone footage. That's an army of drones flying over the sunset uplands of Dudley or wherever that picture is. No, don't guess. Don't even just think, well, we've always used Twitter in the past, so let's put things onto Twitter. Even if something has worked 6 months ago, my challenge to you is just go back and double check and test, because one of the very striking things over the past 6 months with COVID is everything is just up in the air. How people are consuming media, how people are reacting, the amount of time people are spending doing stuff is just changing. On the one hand, I think it's fascinating. On the other hand, this actually is quite a bit of extra work in actually working out where people are and what they're doing, how happy they are to be talking to you or getting messages. I suppose the overriding principle of all this is a quote here from W. Edwards Deming, who basically was an American who helped to rebuild the Japanese economy after the Second World War. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So don't be the person saying drone footage, Twitter, or whatever. Go and do some digging. And this is a comms thing, and this is also the project as well, to gather data, lots of it. For the purposes of COVID, I would say, you know, the early data you need to be looking at is population statistics. How old is your population? What kind of ethnic background are they from? For example, Sunderland, 97% white, 3% Asian, of which 0.8% is Indian. That's completely different to Dudley, and completely different to Luton, and completely different to Hackney and other parts of the country. Don't just shout into the abyss, because you kind of vaguely think that you know. Don't go back, look at the data, see what nationality people are, because that would have a really big effect on how you should be doing stuff. Of course, you've got the data that's coming out with who's ill and what the problems are and which ward and all that kind of sort of stuff. But I think you need the mix of the population and also the live coronavirus stuff. For the purposes of this project, this hypothetical thing, I would direct you to Ofcom, and I would recommend that you spend 5 hours going through the stuff that's on the Ofcom website, not just the communications market report, but in particular the stuff, the really useful stuff they've done around COVID and how people are consuming stuff. They've got 25 weeks worth of data. They've gone from weekly reporting to every 4 or 5 weeks, and this is the most recent set of stats, where they basically looked to see actually how people are finding stuff out about COVID. And the finding is about a third of people across the board are finding from family members. Oh, have you heard about such and such? I've heard that this is going to happen. My mate Dave has said on Facebook, whatever. About a third across all demographics and all age ranges. I've stopped largely looking at social media and other things in a really homogenous block, because actually how people are consuming stuff is really different. If you're a 16-year-old or if you're a 22-year-old, really different to if you're 65 and above. So you need to pay a bit of attention to that with your communications and all this stuff. Social media. Unsurprisingly, young people are finding out about COVID from social media, and that can be friends' content, it could be newspaper, it could be the BBC, it could be elsewhere. But that's how people are finding out information. Two potentially quite surprising slides. Firstly, traditional news. Oh, the dead tree press. No one looks at that. People aren't buying newspapers, etc., etc. And you're right, they're not going out and buying hard copies of newspapers in numbers that they perhaps used to be. However, newspapers have got really good at turning themselves into media companies, and with a really active Facebook page and a really good Twitter account and a website that's actually quite interesting and engaging, so long as you don't look at it on a PC where you will be inundated with pop-ups and all sorts of bad things. Look at it on Facebook, you get the information. Manchester Evening News has got a Facebook page with 1.5 million people liking it. They have never reached as many readers in their history, in their 163-year history, how they do now. So that's how people are finding out about traditional newspapers. or media companies, as I should say. And the council stats, a big build-up. Ofcom says this is how people are finding out about stuff from their council. 1% at best. That's from a range of different channels. That can be website, that can be Facebook, that can be whatever. Apart from 35 to 44-year-olds who are probably too busy trying to, work, 12-hour days in order to, service whatever they're doing. So I think the moral of the story is, don't just think that people are going to come to you to find out what the information is. This includes email, this includes the website, letters, whatever. They're not going to come to you to find out what's happening with COVID. They're quite happy being on Facebook and being on elsewhere. Facebook, 43 million users. They're quite happy there. So to go to where people are, it's a really age-old piece of advice, which when I trot out and tell people, I almost feel as though I'm robbing them, because I'm just telling you common sense. Go to where people are, and if you're doing that, then you've got a chance to go through and reach people. They're not waiting to come to your council website. A really good example of this, of understanding the data, understanding the population, understanding the channels. I came across just the other week in Hackney in London. Hackney has got a large Jewish population of between 20 and 30,000, with an awful lot of observant Jews. So if you're an observant Jew, then you don't use the internet. However, you are allowed to use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is allowed. When at the start of lockdown, and people were saying that you're not to go to your place of worship, you're not to congregate, you're not to sort of mix between households, etc. The Jewish population, and in particular the rabbis, were hang on, we're not happy about this. And you have to understand, the rich, long history of the Jewish tradition over hundreds of years is to actually just be a little bit wary when people say, we're shutting your synagogue and you're not going to worship. Alarm bells start ringing, quite understandably so. So the situation that the council and NHS and others were faced with was actually the Jewish population who were listening to their rabbis saying, we're happy with this, we need to try and think of ways to get around this. So they spent a bit of time with community leaders and looked at the data, and they realised WhatsApp was the answer. So they came up with a really, really blindingly good idea, and that was, so if we create some video and post it from a council WhatsApp for Business account and broadcast it towards some people in the Jewish community who are quite happy to take that will then be spread with the Jewish community, wouldn't it? Well, it would. But can you have a Jewish paramedic? Because that's really going to be helpful. Someone from the community in a position of responsibility, talking to other members of the community on the platform that the community use. And that's what they did. And there was a noticeable change. I was just waiting to see what the stats were from Hackney. I'll try and fill you in with them. But it worked because they went to where people were, and they looked at the population stats, and they did all that kind of stuff. It wasn't just the drone footage. They worked out where people were. Is it the sexiest thing on the face of the planet? You know what? Probably not. Is it the most effective in this case? Absolutely it is. Okay, so to do more of that, do more of looking at the data and understanding where people are. For COVID, actually for your other stuff too, if it's a change program, if it's something else, find out where people are. Don't just guess. Go and talk to them. Go and work out how and where people would like the information served to them, and then do it. Thanks very much. There's my bill. It's not hard. Trust. Trust is another thing that you probably need to be thinking of, whether it's COVID or other things. And trust. The subtitle of that is, who fronts the content for you? In the example of Hackney Council, the trusted person was a member of the Jewish community who was also a paramedic. Tick box, tick box. Okay, that's the person. Very often in local governments, and I say this from experience, the default setting is, well, it's the councillor. The councillor should be saying this kind of stuff. I'm going to say, I feel your pain and I understand. This potentially is a way for you to navigate around that particular issue. First of 3 slides I've got on trust, and it's from a UCL study from September of this month. Confidence in government, confidence in English government, by that I mean the UK government, not that great. Scottish, Northern Irish, appreciably better, but you know, on a bit of a downward slide. So we're trusting government far less. Slide from Edelman. Actually, who do we trust in bog standard times? Who do we trust most? On the right-hand side, journalists, we trust 32% of the time. Government official, 36%. Chief executive, 39%. Working our way across towards the left, regular employee, 57%. So your frontline employee, the regular member of the team, is more trusted than the person with the epaulets in your organisation. More trusted than that. Academic expert, just by 63%. Company or technical expert, 63%. So I understand the whole thing of, oh, we've had enough of experts and we need to stay clear, but actually we want regular employees and we want people who know what they're talking about. Thanks very much. So I often use this in training because it's quite useful, because the issue of, well, what about the counsellor? Actually, let the data make the decision. Put this slide in front of people and just say, well, data-led decision, let's look at industry best practice. Edelman, largest PR company in the world, would probably suggest for this academic expert or a regular employee. If you need to have a counsellor somewhere for the reasons of politics, to salute the flag and do all those sorts of things, then maybe have a screenshot of them with a quote, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Or if you're making a video, make a 3-minute 30 video on Facebook and give them the last 30 seconds and just say, you're having the last word on this. It's really important you have the last word. And they could be staring at their shoes, you know, not being very engaging, but your audience hopefully will have soaked up the information in the first 5 seconds, absolutely. First 20 seconds, yeah. First 3 minutes, yeah. Just leave the boring person until the end. If your counsellor is a really engaging person and can come across as a regular employee or someone like myself, Ipsos Mori, then brilliant. Ordinary woman in the street, 65% trusted. Nurses, top of the tree. 90, I need to move this box because it's just hovering. 90-something% of people would trust a nurse. So that's really the good news. Doctors, also trusted. Dentists, not trusted by me. I must confess, I'm in the 10% who's not that keen on dentists, but politicians generally, 14%. Councillors at the bottom, 41%. So just let the data make the decision as far as what you're doing. How is this playing out in terms of actually what people are doing? And this is the interesting thing as far as I'm concerned, because what we were doing in March, we're doing different things now. Those government messages, Scottish government, Northern Irish government, Welsh government, UK government, do this. They're not being shared in anything like them because we're a bit bored of them, and actually we're not that, we're a bit fed up of governments generally. So you're seeing less of these going past your timeline. You're seeing a little bit more of this. NHS, I don't mind the NHS. Yeah, think about potentially sharing that. But what we are definitely seeing is much more of this. And just as an experiment, I looked at our councils and NHS in the Black Country to see what kind of content worked best. And I came across this video by Sandwell and West Birmingham NHS Trust, which I'll play you just a little bit of. The sound might not be the best, so just bear with.
There's no sound, Dan.
Coronavirus
Here it comes.
has gone away. Coronavirus kills, and cases are rising every day, including in our hospitals.
I don't want to be treating you or your loved ones in intensive care.
I've seen the incredible damage it can do to your lungs and the devastation caused by the disease to patients and their families in Sandwell and Birmingham.
We are asking you all, please abide by the restrictions in your local area and keep a safe distance from each other.
Wear a mask in all shops, on all public transport and in any enclosed space. Please wash your hands as often as you possibly can for at least 20 seconds. If you haven't got access to soap and water, then make sure you use an alcohol gel.
If you have any symptoms, please stay at home. If you've been told to isolate, please make sure you do.
Okay, and that's the general warning that they've got. Hopefully you can carry on hearing. Swain, shout if my mic's not brilliant. All right, brilliant, thank you. Okay, so looking at the government content, the archetypal messages from 10 Downing Street, shared on average once. Local video that you've just seen was shared 700 times by the good people of Sandwell and West Birmingham, because it's video and video gets shared most on social media, but also because it was a local message with a local voice, with people potentially who they could maybe recognise. And if you're particularly good, you could have some footage of a local person and see if the local person's friends and family to be sharing that content as soon as it drops, whereby you will be telling Facebook's algorithm, this is a very interesting piece of content, 10 people have liked and shared it in the first 20 minutes. Therefore, I will share it to more people. So you get on the right side of that effect too. So local stuff would work in this case. What people share, it's also a bit of research did it in the Black Country. Yes, it's memes, and people are having complex discussions about medical policy through the medium of the meme. One of my favourites: if the Titanic was sinking today, there's the image. It's dry here. The sinking is a hoax, said people in the back. If I drink fuel, I won't freeze. Nobody can force me to wear a life jacket. All of those things, but also the please wait here until you realise your government is brainwashing you. All this kind of sort of stuff circulating. How much is it circulating? Here's some stats of a cross section from the Black Country from September. Means about 16% of what's circulating on Facebook. Text discussions. Oh, I went to the hospital today and such. You think we need to do that? About 18%. Surprisingly small. Potentially video, 14%. Public sector links, 8%. Not really working. What is working is the news site. And that could be a link to, in this case, it was a link to the Evening Mail or the BBC or elsewhere, 44%. So it's worth still thinking about media relations and in particular, having a conversation with your local journalist to say, look, what kind of content would work for you? Actually, it would be a X or Y or Z. Okay, make the content, have it to yourself, post it yourself, allow it to be shared by others, and news organisations in particular, and that's the way that you'll be reaching people as far as COVID's concerned. Here is a list, again, based on data and insight from different age groups and different demographics. Their number one, their number two, and their number three platform. Twitter is not on that list because it's not in the top three of any of those demographics. For my money, local government is really good at Twitter because in 2010 it kind of grasped Twitter first and it's not really let go. I kind of think if you just say, let's whack it onto Twitter, is about as effective as let's send out a press release, let's do a poster, that kind of stuff. You're not thinking, you're not looking at the data, you're not working out what's going to be most effective. Let's have a quick sliver of tea. So for 13 to 24-year-olds, that younger demographic who are proving quite resistant to a lot of content. WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger. As you get older, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. 35 to 54, Facebook and WhatsApp. Older, 55 and above, WhatsApp, Facebook and the BBC crop up as a channel that actually people is their third favourite thing. They will be watching the news and going to the news website and doing all of those different things. To someone who trained as a journalist, worked as a journalist, and then became a local government communications person, I find that interesting. The old thing was, well, they'll die out potentially, but right now, the BBC is a trusted place where people are going for information, and the third most favourite platform. Can you talk about COVID on Facebook? Absolutely. Post to your Facebook page, then take it into the group, the small group, the community group with 400 people in or 1,000 people in. Knock on the door and see if they'll share it for you. Is the way. Going to where people are, that thing that I mentioned right at the top. WhatsApp, can you do stuff with WhatsApp? Yes, absolutely you can. WhatsApp for business, content, people in the organisation. Can you follow this and share with your friends and family as a starting point? I think would be my place to start off. 20 quid for a new phone, £10 a month for similarly a contract. I just use that. You can't share. You can't have a WhatsApp business account on your own device because it doesn't like. You can have one or the other. Okay, 20 quid, reach all those people. Why would you not want to do that? Right, planning, and this is something which hopefully is relatively simple. It's just a process which is I'd like to try and think of it as just purely codified common sense. And it's a 10-step process which makes people stop going for the drone for the first, right? Order loads of drones. Okay. Number one, where are you now? Number two, where do you want to go and why? Those two things you need to think of before you sit down with the comms team. And one thing I must mention, if you're planning a communications plan, this is not the work of one person in a room. After being sent an email at 4:30 on a Thursday, ready for 10 a.m. on Friday, it won't work. And I say that from bitter experience. For a communications plan to work, you need potentially 3 or 4 people there. If you're involved with delivering the project, great, come along. I need half an hour of your time. If you're the person being delivered to, great. Would you mind coming along then? Because we want to test some ideas out. Have 4 or 5 people who are going to come at this from a different perspective, but they all kind of want this thing to work. So, but also, if you're doing it that way, then everyone feels just a little bit invested. This plan isn't the comms team's plan. It's that thing that we drew up and that idea that I came up with, which is now shaping things, and all that thing that the youth spoke about. But this is everyone's plan. It used to break my heart when I used to get those 4:30 emails saying, "Could you just do a comms plan because we've got a submission tomorrow?" What's the point? Literally, what is the point? It's not going to work. So where are you now? Where do you want to go to? Where do you want to go to and why? And make it measurable. Where are you now? Well, we've got X and we want to be at Y. Count the number of things that you want to move. You've got 100 per 100,000. You want to get to 50. Okay, so you've got something that you can measure to work out whether or not the stuff you're doing is going to work or not. Who do you want to talk to? Well, the data would say that 16 to 24-year-olds are really a problem area. Okay, so what's the one thing you want them to do? Well, you want 16 to 24-year-olds to wash their hands and not go to illegal raves and do all those different things. Where can you find them? Well, in our patch, it's X. Physically, it's X, but it's also, referring back to those notes, it's Instagram potentially and WhatsApp. Okay, so to make some content for those. How much staff time budget have you got? Well, we've got one person half a day a week, a budget of 500 quid. It's worthwhile thinking about this now because you can go back to you want to go from 100 per 100,000 to 50 on 500 quid. This feels as though you might need to put a bit more staff time and a bit more budget into this. So rather than just be going, it's 10 grand or 500, you can start to actually practically work out what you're going to do. How long have you got? We've got 6 weeks. We got a week. We got a day and a half. We got 6 hours. Whatever it is, just factor that in as well. When and how are you going to evaluate? Every day we're going to look at the data and see what's working, see what's not. And every week we'll look at it really closely and do more of that and less of this. We'll work out where our Jewish WhatsApp video is going to be, because it's not going to be that, it might be something else. When and how are you going to evaluate? Well, we'll do it every day, but every week, you know, in lots of details. Who are you going to tell that you're going to do this? Well, we're going to tell, you know, the chief executive and, you know, the head of MI5 and all the rest of it. I always think it's worthwhile putting that in, just to concentrate minds a little bit. For a less high profile kind of comms plan, it's kind of useful just to work out who that senior person is, who you're going to tell you're doing this. So you're not in that situation where you are either on a Zoom call with or walking down a corridor at distance and you're thinking, oh, I really hope they don't ask me about that thing that I've not already done. So just think about that. Lastly, once you've done all that, you can start to think about, I've described it as the timeline tax. It's the kind of stuff you're going to do. And the stuff you're going to do, you're going to make better decisions on what you're going to do because you've looked at the data and you've looked at where you are now and where you want to go. All of those things. It can work for COVID, it can work for a new library, it can work for a new application on the website, it can work for automating something. It just works for all sorts of different things, but it will involve a little bit of time with you sitting down with the comms team who have got hands, not wands. Sit down together, come up with a plan, and you will get something that's workable. And that broadly is it. That's the idea of communicating for COVID and communicating in general. So I shall stop sharing and I shall invite either some questions or do escape from here. Yeah, I think you can. Either questions or just a discussion about the weather or anything like that, whatever floats your boat. Really.
The weather's crap, if that helps.
Yes, Jeremy, let's start off with the basics. That weather, yeah.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Twitter doesn't feature anywhere in the the communications matrix. I would have assumed it would have been in the top 3 for all of them.
It's the wonderful thing with data that it challenges assumptions and it makes you think, and it makes you just sort of question what you're doing. And this is Ofcom's data, and this isn't a sudden last 12 months thing. This is actually going on for some time. I think what Twitter is really good at is breaking news, reaching journalists, reaching stakeholders, and sometimes communities of interest. You know, PR people have got quite a strong presence. Nursing community are all over it. Gay Twitter is huge.
So did you say gay Twitter?
Gay Twitter.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So communities of interest, but not as a way to reach, you know, people on the Wren's Nest estate in Dudley.
Right.
Ain't Twitter. It's going to be Facebook.
Right.
Possibly some of those other things. Because geographical, I'd put a lot of time in looking at Facebook as a place to reach people. I'd give you the example of the village of Coggeshall in Essex. Population 5,000. They have 92 Facebook groups. The largest of which has got 6,000. So the Facebook admin of Coggeshall Essex Facebook group is the most influential of people in the village, as far as you're concerned. Far more than you getting lead story on News at 10, the 6 o'clock news, and the Daily Telegraph. Well, actually, people in Coggeshall aren't going to see that, but they will see Coggeshall Essex.
And Facebook gives you, it's got that marketing function, hasn't it, Dan? So you can identify all the different age groups and so you can be targeted with it.
They are taking groups increasingly seriously. Just last week, they launched another. They announced another round of extra things for groups Groups are at the heart of what they're doing, to quote Mark Zuckerberg. As important as friends and family, because I think the trend is away from the public discussion of stuff to the more private discussion of stuff. So with your family on WhatsApp, or your brother, or in my case on WhatsApp, or your family on Messenger, or colleagues on Messenger or WhatsApp, people are less likely to go, do you know what, I'm really at it with it. They're quite happy to. In terms of finding out your local geographic Facebook group, Facebook search and just finding stuff in, and you will find, groups that you never imagined were there. The Polish community on your patch, new parents, whatever those subgroups are, you will find them. I've got lots of time for people to say, oh, do you know what, Facebook, I ain't too pleased with Facebook. I get that, I do. But when I worked in a press office, we used to speak to the News of the World, the Sun, the Express, and the Star, and all the rest of it, because that's where the audience was. So on Facebook, I'll go and talk to them on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, my community locally here in Orkney is by far not representative of the UK in general. I just want to say that first in case anyone's in any doubt. But I have a theory about Facebook and why it was so much more popular here so much earlier than anywhere else. And that's basically because people were already connected together in various different complicated and multifaceted ways within the community. Let's face it, we can't escape. We've got to deal with each other unless we get on a boat. And I think the willingness in the back of your mind, the attitude towards Facebook was, well, I would be a Facebook friend with virtually anybody I've heard of in the islands. And I think that made the platform very attractive very, very quickly. And Twitter's never really taken off here, never has for any purpose whatsoever. There are people on Twitter, obviously. But as you say, Dan, it tends to be people who are communicating with big groups of people outside the area. And I think that what you say about groups is absolutely, it's got more and more so. That there's about half a dozen groups here that if you were able to get something in the right tone of voice in each of them, you'd have covered absolutely everybody by the time somebody had by the time each person who read it told one friend.
Brilliant. And if there's a group already there, fantastic. If there ain't one, think about setting one up.
My favourite is Have a Moan Orkney.
It's also interesting.
Sorry, Jez.
So it's also interesting what you're saying about Hasidic Jews not using the internet, which I hadn't been aware of. But it made me think about other kind of community groups, minority groups. Any tips there, about how to get through?
Yeah, I mean, the example with the Jews and WhatsApp just made me sit back and go, you know what? That's really good. Not because I can use it for everything, but just because actually what you've done is you've taken time to understand your population, and you've spoken to your population, say actually what's the best way. And the population has said, the Jewish population has said, well, we use WhatsApp. So in answer to that, Jez, probably talking to community leaders and go through the team in the council who used to be qualities of when it works in local government. You may have a different name for it. Just who would have talked to in order, in the Pakistani community in Plaque in Warsaw? Well, you'd go and speak to such and such. Okay, see if they can have that conversation because they've already made that, or look to try and put a toe in the water. But have that conversation, because that conversation, I realise you're busy and everyone's busy, and I can almost hear that thing going, yeah, but we're really busy. Okay, that's 20-minute investment of time, half an hour or 40 minutes actually just might save you a load of mither and grief further down the track, because that community you do. It's
one of those things that you wish you'd done 6 months ago, because when a crisis hits, it's too late to start. Well, it's never too late, but it would have been a lot better to have built those relations a year ahead. Absolutely.
Which is why I think start to think about communications really early on, because you can spot those problems and you can navigate around them, and because there's no point just as you're putting all your items into a brown box and you're leaving, and then saying, oh, it's a shame you never spoke to Dave just around the corner, because he could have thanks for telling me now. Yeah, just a bit of time now. It's almost worth a project in itself, a piece of research. half an hour spent now in the planning stage would save you what, in terms of pounds, shillings and pence, your time, the chief executive going, what about that remedy that you tried to just, it's so much worth it.
Yeah, it's a big lesson for crisis comms and generally. I mean, this has been probably the biggest crisis and we've never seen coming, but you can also envisage it being valuable for local issues that crop up.
Yeah, because I think hopefully, if anything, it's reminded people of the value of decent communications, because anyone can spot bad communications a mile off, or just spot that it never happened. But good communications, sometimes can strike you. But I'd hope the lessons learned with COVID, if you can get it right for COVID, then you can take that into other stuff.
Any more for Mr. Dan Slee?
But if it's useful, I'll send across the planning template, which is like a download, which you can just use to scribble on. I would say the problem that you will have, the problem that I've often have working through these is the first two stages. Stage one, where are you now? Stage two, where do you want to go and why? And I've sometimes sat in commons planning sessions and said, okay, where are you now? Don't know. Where do you want to go and why? No idea. At that point, I kind of think to myself, actually, I need to just put my pen down and go, I need to go, because you need to go and work that out. Because if you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going, I can't help you. And sometimes the flow chart of this is more awareness. Can we have some of that awareness stuff done? If only we had more of the awareness, that'll be all right. Actually, no, I'm here to say that's not all right. That's very fucking not all right at all. What's awareness? I could write a post-it note and hold it up, and that's awareness. I could spend £1,000 on buying a big hoarding by the M6 in Walsall, saying, everyone go to Pleck Park, and go back and say, 40,000 people have seen that. That's amazing. High five, high five. Okay, so what have people done as a result of that? No idea. Well, what's the point of that £1,000 about 40,000 people seeing it? There is literally no point. So where are you now? Where do you want to go to? We want more people to go and visit Pleck Park. Okay, so who do we want to talk to? People in the vicinity. So let's not do the huge placard by the M6. Let's go and talk to people in Pleck. Perhaps it's leaflets. It's just literally as simple as pushing leaflets through the door. And maybe there's a community group. Maybe it's doing a litter pick and you're talking about it on Facebook. Those sorts of things. But yeah, awareness. You have my permission to take someone aside and just shoot them if anybody ever says awareness.
You don't mean that, though. That's like, that. I'll just jump in now as a disclaimer. Dan doesn't actually mean shoot them. He's talking hypothetically.
Yeah, I should qualify that by saying this.
Are we sure? What guarantees do we have of that? I don't know.
Yeah. Nick, have you got a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking how you referred to the conversations with the journalists around the sort of content that would work for them, but in terms of the Facebook groups, is there any sort of approach that you'd advise in making to the local administrators there? Because I've tried posting a couple of things COVID related to it's not the area I work in, but it's the area I live in, and
yes.
It never got in there, and I'm thinking, oh well, this is pretty crucial information here. So I don't know, did you sort of the importance of that initial conversation, do you think?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good question, because things can live and die by the Facebook admin. So I always think if you go into someone's front garden, just say politely, is it all right if I put my deck chair down here and have a conversation with people? It's just kind of politeness. And if you're from the council and you're actually knocking on the door because you want to, then the reaction you're going to get from the Facebook admin is generally the direction you're likely to get from the wider group. So if you either get blanked, you're likely to get blanked by the group, or if someone goes, no, I hate the council because 12 years ago you turned down, you individually, Nick, turned down a planning application for a garage, and you ruined my life, so therefore you're not going to come into my Facebook. But it's actually better to know that from one person. Thanks, I'll go off elsewhere. So some of them are really good, are really, really helpful, and some of them are shockers. So it's not a pure golden bullet that's going to work every time around. But I can't help but thinking, more times than not, you will get quite a positive response and some really good results. But yeah, geographical search, knock on the door, hello, any chance of? Yeah, okay. And if you're not so keen on joining yourself, to see if very often it's a project I did at early days of COVID. Actually, people were like, "Oh, that's fine. Come in. I'll leave it as a member. Yeah, post it yourself. That's fine." Or if you'd rather they post it on your behalf, then just see if you can do that. Which is what the police do in Brown Hills. 13,000 members of the Brown Hills Bob Facebook group. Bob will post it. Oh, the Sergeant such and such has been in contact and said this is the missing person appeal in Brown Hills. You can also join groups as a page, dependent on a range of factors, not including if admins have gone back and changed the setting that says no, we don't want pages. Well, you can't. But the default setting is pages can come and ask to join, unless the admin go back. So you go through the corporate page, have a chat. Say, look, I'm thinking about doing this. Any chance of adding me, not as the full admin, but as a or the next level down? Yeah, have that conversation.
Yeah, I think I've sort of fallen at that sort of hurt, because I have sort of approached the group owner, and they were perfectly sort of friendly about. I don't know if things are getting shot down by their admins before it gets to that person I had the conversation with. So I think maybe I need to do a wider message to potentially to all the admins.
Yeah, I mean, quite often see, if Jeff is the admin and three other people are there, I'd post something just to say, at the top, this has been cleared with Jeff, and here's my stuff, and it just tells you the other admin to clear off. Yeah, just decent communications, and can really totally make or break something. The finest idea that you all have cannot get out the door because actually the right people, the right time, the right channel we're not spoken about, and it's working out what is decent communications. It is a bit of a collaborative process with you and the comms team. Chances are, if you're having the conversations with the comms team, they're going to be run ragged, and they're really going to be worn out, tired, and quite stressed. So any help you can be, look, we just sit down for 20 minutes to talk about this because I've got some ideas. I've got this template. Could we work through it and just think about a few things? I know where I am, and I know where I want to go to.
And don't use the word awareness.
Please don't. For everyone's sake, because it's just such a nebulous term that means it just doesn't mean anything.
You realise now your Twitter stream is going to be full of the word awareness now. I'll get all the Briggs and tell him that.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Right.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. Has anyone got any more sort of observations or questions for Mr. Slee?
Well, my Twitter handle is at Dan Slee, and my email address is dan@danslee.co.uk.
None of us are on Twitter, Dan.
It's fine. You've all made the mood. It's all about the TikToks now. I'm right across that.
Yeah.
If you've got any questions, or just whatever, I'll send that comments planning template through to you, Nick, if you want to.
All right, brilliant. Yeah, and I'll distribute it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, nice one, mate. Good to see you.
And you.
Good to see you in Fine Fettle. We'll get the Dan's awards out. We'll sort that out before the end of this year.
Loads of awareness, please, Nick. That would really
That's right. Yeah. We'll have an awareness award. The Dan Slee Awareness Award.
Thanks.
It's a thing. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for your attendance. Round of applause for Mr. Slee.
Round of applause for you lot. Cheerio.
Catch you all tomorrow. Take it easy. Have a good evening.